I'd like you to put your hands together for the one MP who has turned up to our breakfast this morning, the Hon Michael McCormack MP, Minister for Small Business and henceforth known as the Minister for the Inland Rail Line. Please put your hands together for the Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Steve, for that kind introduction. And in 1909, the Sydney Rugby League Grand Final was decided. South Sydney were declared premiers after Balmain failed to turn up. But I'm sure Andrew Leigh is a good mate of mine. He'll front, and I might just have to either talk or answer questions. Oh, here he is. Well done, Andrew. You can come up here, mate. Come up here if you like. You want a hand up? It's all good. Well, I acknowledge my parliamentary colleague Andrew Leigh, and I know he would have some constituents in the room as well. Are there any constituents from the Riverina here? Hands up. Okay, well, there's one. Okay, so along the lines that you mentioned before, and I don't think the Prime Minister's here, so maybe it won't be the trifecta, Steve, that you perhaps were talking about. So one constituent, hopefully she might vote for me next time. Malcolm isn't here, so anyway, we'll get on with it. I am excited to address you all about last night's budget. Ours is a plan. Scott Morrison's was a plan last night for fairness, for opportunity and indeed for security. And no matter where you live or what postcode you're in or what your terms of existence are, that was certainly the case. Now, Australians know if our economy is strong, then so too there will be more jobs. If our economy grows, then mums and dads have the money in their pockets and small businesses can pursue their dreams, can follow their dreams. And to help grow our economy, we have a plan, a blueprint for success to get Australia back on track and live within our means. Last night's was a budget for all Australians, both in the cities and in the regions. Above all, it was a budget for Australia's future. So I'm excited to share this vision with you. The budget respects future taxpayers. That's so important. And it's projected to return to surplus in the 2021 financial year. We have quarantined the Future Fund, stopped borrowing for recurrent spending, and are making sure that taxpayers' money is invested wisely in infrastructure assets. Budgets are about choices. So we've used this budget, as the Treasurer said, to make the right choices for better days ahead. By making these choices, the coalition government is building the Australia of tomorrow with jobs, families and small business firmly in the driver's seat, today, tomorrow, each and every day. I want to start talking about small business. Every day, more than 5.6 million Australians go to work in Australia's 3.2 million small businesses. And across Australia, our small businesses make up around 99% of all businesses in our country. From sole traders to those great family enterprises, each of them is a story of hard work and dedication. Each of them has taken a risk, just like I did for 8 years before I entered Parliament. And by the sounds of things, I'm taking a bit of a risk by being here today, Steve. But anyway, each of them got there on the sweat of their own endeavours. And just like the budgets of this coalition government in recent years, this one backs small business, our local job creators. That's why we cut the tax rate for small and medium businesses. In 16-17, the rate has been cut to 27.5%, the lowest it's been for many, many decades, affecting many of you in this room today. The tax rate will be phased down to 25% by 26-27. Together with the tax discount for unincorporated small businesses, these changes benefit more than 3 million businesses. And just yesterday I guided this legislation through the House of Representatives, which means our small business plan is now enshrined in law. In guiding that legislation through, I told the Parliament about the hundreds of small business owner and operators I've met in the past few months as part of my national small business roadshow. We appreciate the federal government reducing the company tax rate to 27.5%. We would like to see more of this coming. That will give us cash flow to invest in equipment and machinery to train our staff. Not my words, they're the words of Barry and Lena Salim of Salim Power Engineering Services in Western Sydney, and I toured their small business, with Alex Hawke just a few weeks ago, and I saw firsthand how they take young people, give them an apprenticeship, give them a go. Small business is central in our plan for fairness, for opportunity and for security. In the 44 communities I visited in 24 electorates just in recent weeks, I've also heard how small business operators use the instant asset write-off and replace or upgrade machinery and equipment. It helped immensely, necessary for us to produce good food, for staff morale, and it actually was a chain reaction. That's what Alana Laliotitis describes of the impact Casino Greco's new equipment thanks to our instant asset write-off program. She runs a terrific little Greek restaurant in Parramatta with her husband Peter, which I visited alongside Senator Maurice Payne, the Defence Minister, just recently. Alana told me her instant asset write-off purchases helped her through the busy days. More efficiency, more customers, her words again, not mine. And that's why we're continuing to support small business by extending the instant asset write-off for a further 12 months to help small businesses like Alana, like Barry, like Leigh, invest in their business to grow and create local jobs. And our recent changes to the small business tax rate also redefine small business. The Liberal and Nationals in government have real experiences in small business. We know what it's like to take a risk and, importantly, to hire someone whose wage you have to pay regardless of how much the business turns over that month. That's why we know that small business doesn't stop at a $2 million turnover. By redefining small business to a $10 million turnover, thousands more can qualify for the instant asset write-off. And how good is that? It will improve cash flow for small business, helping them to reinvest in their business and replace or upgrade assets, and above all, to have a go. Another thing I've heard loud and clear wherever I go, from Bunbury with Nola Marino in the west to Benalla with Senator Bridget McKenzie, in Bateman's Bay with Ann Sood-Marlis and with Sarah Henderson in Belmont, is that something has to be done, must be done about red tape. Small business know that some paperwork is needed, but would like governments to do more to reduce the burden. I know that, you know that, and I'm sure that everybody here in a small business gets that, understands it. The coalition government has already cut $5.8 billion a year in red tape. It easily eclipses our $1 billion per year target, but we know, as you do, that there's more work to be done, much more work. I understand what it's like to open your doors early in the morning, close them late at night, go home, do the domestic things and then get back into the paperwork. I get that. So I'm pleased to say there's some relief on the way for business activity statements. The simpler BAS will reduce GST compliance by reducing reporting requirements from 7 to 3, GST on sales, GST on purchases, total sales. But the federal government cannot cut red tape alone. Last night we also announced an initiative to encourage state and federal governments to make similar inroads into cutting red tape. The federal government will provide up to $300 million over the 2 years as an incentive to states to reduce unnecessary regulation. And above all, it's about getting out of the way of small business and letting them get on with the job of doing what they do best. Small business is central to the government's plan, and it's backed up with a vision for Australia's future, a blueprint for success. It's a future which our children and our children's children, we've heard the Prime Minister say that many times, can take advantage of the best opportunities to be their best selves, to get a job. A future in which health and education spending is needs-based, it's fair and it's fully funded. Our vision starts by building the infrastructure our country deserves, wants and expects, so we're committing more than $70 billion to projects right across the nation. Last night we committed $5.3 billion to establish the Western Sydney Airport Corporation, another coalition step to deliver this vital project. We will establish a $10 billion national rail program plus $20 million for business cases for faster rail connecting capital cities to major regional centres. As a country MP, I'm also very excited, as Steve mentioned, that we're actually delivering, spending $8.4 million in the Melbourne to Brisbane Inland Rail. Infrastructure creates opportunities, but education, we all know, is the great enabler. Through delivering a needs-based model of funding for schools with investment increasing year on year over the next decade, we're skilling our kids with the tools that they need for the future. It's $18.6 billion over the next decade to make sure that schools' funding is needs-based, equitable and targeted. So too is our investment in health. And we're also reforming the banking system so consumers and taxpayers get a fairer deal. We've announced a 6 basis point levy on big banks' liabilities, which will bring in $6.2 billion, a productivity commission inquiry into competition in the banking sector, and we're establishing a dispute resolution facility for banks to make the system fairer. We will establish a banking executive accountability regime and have tougher penalties for concealing misconduct. And the ACCC will have a dedicated team to investigate banking competition, as well as giving customers greater access to their banking data. These choices take action now to make the system fairer. The revenue we receive will fund our path to balance over the forward estimates. Just finally, these are choices in the budget for fairness. These are choices for opportunity and security. They're choices to back small business, to create jobs and opportunities. They're choices to build the infrastructure that a modern Australia needs, wants, expects and mostly deserves. They are choices to give Australian students and those in our healthcare system, that's all of us, the support they deserve. They're choices to responsibly fund our way back to balance. They're choices for Australia. So thanks to the IPA and the Chamber of Commerce for Canberra for inviting me here today. I look forward to the panel discussion later this morning, and I thank you very much for attending and for listening.